Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Run Pier Sports MMA show, talking UFC 257, the return of Conor McGregor today. I'm your host, Peter Christensen, draft cheat around the DFS industry, joined today by Joey Werk and Titletown. Joey, what's going on, man?
What's going on, man? Excited to chop it up with you guys. I'm out here in Cali, but I had to make time for the boys.
Absolutely. Title, how you doing today?
Good. I haven't been on a show with Joey Werk yet, so this is nice. He's showing me up with that beautiful background he's got, though. I'm very jealous. All I see is white snow and cold, so I'm jealous.
Yeah, we got the Run Pier Sports backgrounds going on here. Joey out in Cali, he's got the beautiful sunshine behind him. Yeah, as I mentioned, we'll be talking all things UFC 257. Awesome card today. We've got 11 fights to talk about. We'll start with the undercard, the preliminary card. Will go kind of by the DraftKings order of fights. They have it listed on their site, which should correspond to the order of fights tonight. Yeah, obviously we haven't seen Conor fight in roughly a year. Should be a pretty fantastic fight. We know Conor McGregor fights, no matter who he fights, are the kind of the biggest cards of the year. What are your thoughts overall on the card, Joey?
I mean, definitely really excited. It's a little pay-per-view. Conor's obviously back. We obviously have a good fight below them too. Hooker, Chandler, especially with Khabib coming out last week saying if anybody impresses him, he might take any of the four to fight. I know specifically, I think Michael Chandler took that the most to heart, but we'll see. Then obviously, a couple fights got scrapped yesterday, so they switched opponents, but we got some females. So, I mean, past that, it's okay, but I'm excited for those two.
Yeah, the two big fights at the top are obviously kind of the headliners here, but some decent fights throughout. We'll talk about each and every one of them. We'll go, of course, in depth more on others. Title will handle more of the kind of the DFS aspect of it, Joey, the betting side, and I'll chip in here and there with some knowledge where I can. With that, guys, let's jump into the first fight of the night. This one will feature Amir Albazi and Zhalgas Zhumagulov. I might be butchering his name, but nevertheless, expected to be a close fight here. If you look at odds across the industry, basically a toss-up. Line really hasn't moved in either direction much since it opened. Joey, I'll throw it to you. Just since it's a toss-up, if you got to pick a winner here, which side are you leaning?
So I do have an actual official play on the Run Pure Bets website on this game, on this fight. It is Amir Albazi money line. I got it at minus 102 on FanDuel last night. I know some little late money has come on Albazi because he was underdog probably about plus 115-ish earlier in the week, but it is what it is. These two somewhat fight the same style. Zhalgas, last time out, he got a decision loss. If you go back and watch the tape, I actually think he won the fight. He probably won 2 or 3 rounds, but he likes to throw two punch combos, reset, come back, then throw 2 punch combos again. He's very good top pressure. He does like it to get it to the ground, but I don't think he's going to do that here, as Albazi is probably the more skilled on the ground here, and he's also not very good at submissions. So Albazi's always working something. In his UFC debut, he subbed black belt Melvin Gordon. A lot of people were high on him. Obviously, his last fight out, he got shelled, so I don't know how far we're going to take that, but I do see him getting a couple takedowns here, throwing decent output. He doesn't have the power of Zhalgas, but he throws much more output and should be better on the grappling exchanges. So I definitely see him getting a takedown, controlling the fight on the ground, possibly getting a sub, as half his wins are be a sub.
Yeah, the notes I have, watching the tape between these two, Albazi looks like he might be better everywhere to me than Zhalgas. Like, I always break down the fights before I look at the odds. I was kind of surprised to find Albazi as basically a toss-up fight. I had the true line when I handicapped it at Albazi, close to minus 200, I thought would be what I predicted the line would be. So that's always exciting, right? I'm usually not off by that much, or Vegas isn't off, whichever way you want to put it. I see better boxing, better kicks from Albazi. I think he's the better guy on the ground. So I'm pretty excited about this one. He's also moving down from 135 to 125. I think he's going to be really big for this division. Looked good in the weigh-ins. He looked super cut, so I think he's going to be big and ready to go. So I'm pretty excited, honestly, to start this card with Albazi. I'll be fairly heavy on him. I've already hit him as well in betting, and I think even from a DFS perspective, he's interesting. Title, Albazi, and Zhalgas. What are you seeing here?
Yeah, so I'm right there with you guys. I hit Albazi like 2 weeks ago, actually, We were just getting back in MMA, and I was looking at what the fights we had coming up and all that. And the only fight that stuck out from a Vegas perspective really was Albazi, just because, yeah, I agree with everything I said. I had Zumagulov. I know a lot of RPS had Zumagulov last UFC fight because he was a dog. He was cheap. Didn't like a lot of dogs. And yeah, I mean, I thought for sure he got the win too. I thought he got a little robbed there. We got robbed, but Albazi just seems like the better fighter all around, like you said, especially on the ground. And I think he gets it on the ground. This guy's grappling is, it's not next level, but it's really good. He gets down there, he floats, he goes to half guard, full mount. He just transitions really well. And I think he's going to, like you said, I think he's going to be really heavy for this division too, moving down. And I think he's going to dominate too. The problem is for DFS is, I mean, he's 7,900 on DraftKings, $14 on FanDuel. So he is the dog. He is cheap. I don't think he's going to finish necessarily. He definitely could. It's in the realm of possibilities. Vegas doesn't think he does. I think Zumagulov's tough enough where he can last or stuff. So it's not my favorite play. I don't think he's going to get the 100 points. He's going to get the finish and stuff, but I think he wins the fight and he's the underdog. And sometimes that's all you need. So I'm with the Albazi train. I'm excited. It's the first fight of the card too. So we'll know how the day's going right away.
Yeah, it's always scary being kind of heavily invested in that first fight, especially for DFS. If it doesn't go your way, you're just like, is there any of the captain mode?
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds like 3 for 3 here on Albazi. So maybe we're all missing something, but we do like him. One prop, Albazi by submission. You can get it around plus 500. Joey, any interest in that?
Yeah, definitely worth a sprinkle.
Yep.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, don't want to go crazy with that, but it did stand out to me. I think he's got a pretty decent chance to finish this one on the ground. We'll move on to the next fight of the night, one of the more lopsided fights, at least according to our friends in Vegas. Movsar Evloev and Nick Lentz. You're seeing Evloev come in here anywhere between sitting around minus 600 right now, most places. Listen, Nick Lentz, kind of a tried and true UFC veteran, obviously kind of on the back legs of his career, I would say at this point. And Movsar, I think he's won 3 straight by decision. He looks fine. This line seems a little bit out of control to me. Obviously, from a DFS perspective, when you get a fighter up to minus 600, he's going to be very popular. That's just kind of inevitable. People want to get that, quote unquote, sure thing win. I don't really want to bet Lentz here, but man, I'm not laying minus 600. Joey, how confident are you Movsar dominates this fight like Vegas thinks he's going to?
Yeah, so if you know me, I hate laying this high of a price, especially with a guy who mostly leaves it up to the judges. Not a guy that's going to finish. I'm not going to lay minus 600 on a guy that's more than likely going to go to a decision. He might, kill him basically, but he's not. He's going to leave it up to the judges, and I'm not laying minus 600. Evloev, he's a good prospect. 3-0 in the UFC, all went to decision. He has almost all the advantages here. I think he's a better wrestler, probably better striker, and has a strength advantage. Lentz, 10 years. He's 10 years older. He's been in the UFC since 2009, so he has a lot of. He's a good wrestler, but Evloev is a smart wrestler himself. So these guys both average 3 takedowns per 15 minutes. I think Lentz, the best part for him is he gets a lot of rear naked chokes and he gets a lot of chokes, but
sure.
Do I see that happening? Probably not. I really just think it's a bad matchup for Lentz. But as I said, Evloev's not a finisher, so I can't lay the minus 600 on him. The way I would normally look at this would be to finish inside the distance, but Evloev doesn't finish guys, so right. I'm just totally off this fight.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It sounds like you're not going to find any of this fight in the bet pack over at runpuresports.com, which, by the way, we've got a ton of content up on the site, guys, not only for UFC tonight, but also NFL tomorrow, NBA every day, PGA, betting, DFS, Discord is always popping for all those channels. So check it out. You can use promo code WORKBENCH21. That will get you 25% off your first payment. And you'll get all the good stuff from UFC from all of us and everything else going on in the world of sports from a betting and DFS angle. Title, what are you thinking here? Because I think you will see Movsar come in, I assume, fairly highly owned just because he's such a massive favorite. But I do think this could be a fight where even if he dominates it, like Joey said, he could end up with a fairly low output, right? I could see this one kind of taking place on the feet, but Movsar, it doesn't seem like he's got a ton of power, moderate output. Does this seem like one that maybe we can fade? Title, what are your thoughts here between Lentz and Movsar Evloev?
Yeah, so I mean, he's the most expensive fighter on the slate, and as you guys said, it's hard to pay that for a guy that goes to decision like it's clockwork. I don't see him finishing Lentz. I mean, he's fought so many times. Lentz is a tough guy, and he doesn't finish anyone. So it's hard to pay that steep of a price tag. He's cash playable, of course, on both sides. You're expecting a win for sure. So unlike guys like Roundtree and stuff that have better inside the distance odds and stuff, there's more risk involved, obviously, because you can get KO'd in one punch, which I don't see happening. So in this fight. So I think he's cash playable. Upsides hinders a little bit, but I think I think his ownership is going to be lower than what we're thinking. Okay. Because people see the same thing. There's McGregor, who's a pay up. There's Roundtree. Now we have the other fight, Sarukian, who's now same price, who's a big favorite. So I do think his ownership will be a little more down in tournaments if you needed his leverage, but I still like upside in the other upper tier. As far as Lentz goes, I mean, he's a guillotine guy, or he's a bust for finishing wise pretty much in this fight. He always has it. He always can catch the submission if he gets it, but you're banking on that too much for a guy who's very, very good wrestler, just a good fighter altogether. I think he keeps himself out of harm's way when he's on the ground. He's just so good. So I don't really like this fight in general, and it's going to be one I'm not too heavily invested in.
Yeah, I'm on the same page, and that's 2 for 2 guys. We're all kind of on the same page on these two. Hopefully, we'll get some disagreements going on as we go down the card, and we can talk some things out. Title, you mentioned Roundtree. That's the next fight. Khalil Roundtree, Marcin Prachnio. This one should be a war. We've seen Marcin lose 3 fights in a row in the UFC. Neither of these fighters in a pretty high number of total rounds combined has a takedown in the UFC. So you're going to see 2 light heavyweights, I think, stand and bang this one out. Both of these guys, I think, can drop the other. Both of them, Marcin got knocked out, I believe, in his last fight. You got to love this one, Title, for DFS and Joey. This one should be a fun one, right? I could see some fireworks going down here. Joey, you there?
Yeah, for sure. Roundtree kind of has a special little place in my heart, basically. He moved his whole training camp to Thailand.
Yep.
I think 2 fights ago. So he fought Kutabella in that time. He's off a loss to him. There was a year layoff. But before that, he beat Eric Anders. So that was when he made his transfer over to Thailand, and he beat the brakes off of Eric Anders. Yeah. So I was really impressed in that fight. And in the Kutalaba fight, basically he controlled him on the ground. Obviously, as you stated, this fight more than likely is not going to the ground at all.
I don't think so.
So he really dedicated his time and his training to Muay Thai, and his hand speed, his kicks have all improved, basically. He has crazy power. I think personally, he's getting the KO. I think it's going to happen early. I know Pracio, he's 0-3 in the UFC. He lost by first round knockout every time. Sam Alvey knocked the guy out. I mean, I don't think Sam Alvey can knock me out. But I mean, that's my guy. Smiling Sam had him on the show and all, so I don't want to bash him. But Prachnio is a black belt in karate. He needs to really rely on his kicks, continue to move in and out. So obviously, I really trust Khalil more here on the feet. He doesn't have neither of them really have the best of chins. So I could see Khalil getting clipped and going down. So I know I like Roundtree inside the distance, but that number is almost minus 250. That number is a little too high for me too. So I definitely lean under. I don't think this goes to the judges' scorecards, but this is probably a stay away just because the line is too high for my liking.
Yeah. The line here is pretty crazy. I mean, both of these guys have really impressive stand-up, good kicks from both guys. I think, like I said, I think we're going to see a lot of strikes landed early and often, and either of these fighters, in my opinion, is capable of dropping the other with a power shot at any point in the fight. Roundtree is minus 115 to finish this in the first round, which is a number you do not see very often. I'm not willing to pay that. I did look at Roundtree in round 2 is plus 600 compared to minus 115 in round 1. That seems pretty good, right? You could have a war in round 1, and then why not a round 2 finish? I mean, you're getting 600 instead of minus 115. That seems a little absurd to me, Joe. Is that a decent take, do you think?
Yeah, so, that reminds me. If you go back to Wednesday's card, Ike Villanueva versus whoever he fought. So that was the third fight. Same thing happened. The guy he's fighting is 0-3 in the UFC, got knocked down the first round every time. They go out there the first round. He's covering up the whole time.
Like beats him up, but yeah, can't quite get there.
Exactly. And then round 2, right as they come out, boom, knocks him out.
Yep.
So, that's a great look there. I do like that.
Yeah, round 2 plus 600. I believe that was over at FanDuel, but you can probably find a number similar to that at most books. Title from a DFS perspective, Roundtree, I think, outside of Connor, you could make a case he's maybe the strongest play on this card. Obviously going to land probably either a lot of strikes or finish or get finished early. So yeah, I want one side of this fight in pretty much all my lineups. Mostly that's going to be Roundtree, but Pacquiao, one of the cheapest fighters on the card, and his path to victory is probably an early KO as well, which if he gets that, he's likely going to be in the optimal at 6,900 on DraftKings. So this fight, I think, is one you're going to want to target.
Yep, you hit it right on the head. But I lean Roundtree a lot.
Yep.
He's a grown man. He's a way better fighter than Pacquiao. For MMA, there's a couple things that stand out in my model that I really like, and that's grown man. First of all, you can just look at some of the guys, and some, not always, but you can tell some guys are just grown. They're big. They can just bully you in the cage, even with some less skills. That's seen to happen. And then I love leg kicks. Obviously, as we know, leg kicks are the new thing in MMA. Once you cut down that lead leg, you can't move. Like it's over. So. Grown man in this one, Roundtree. I think he's just way better than Pacquiao. Obviously, he's going to be popular, but it's tough to get away. It's like minus 400 last I saw it at inside the distance. So you're going to want a little bit of both sides if you don't lock in Roundtree. If you're only playing a couple lineups, might as well just lock in Roundtree. Best chances, like you said, to get a first round knockout. Like you're laying, you have to pay net minus money for a first round finish.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's very, very rare. So it's hard to get away from this fight. Roundtree's a way better fighter, in my opinion. I think he gets back on track and has some success here. And I'm expecting an early night for Pacquiao. I think first round too. I'm with you. Not sure, like you said, betting that probably too hard. Joey didn't like it as much, not enough value. I agree because there's so many variables. But DFS wise, he's worth the price tag because you think he puts him away.
Yeah, we're all on the same page here again. My official bet for this one, Roundtree, for a round 2 finish at plus 600 seems fairly juicy to me. I do think we'll see one of these fighters get knocked out, frankly. So it should be an exciting one with some good violence for us on the third fight of the night. Next, we'll jump to the first women's fight of the night, Juliana Pena and Sarah McCann. Vegas expects a close battle. McCann, a slight favorite here, sitting around minus 125. I didn't see a ton here. I don't have a ton of insight on this one. Joey, do you see a big edge from either fighter here?
There's not really a big edge, but I definitely lean McCann. She gets in the cage at the age of 40, 1 year off, layoff. I mean, she stayed busy in a couple grappling matches in the meantime, but neither of these girls are really good at striking. I think Sarah may be a little better. She's definitely the better wrestler, that's for sure. Pena's a little overrated in my book. She really hasn't beat anyone. I mean, she did beat Jessica Ai, but Jess doesn't even fight at that weight anymore. She isn't a big enough threat on the feet to really scare me. And she lost a sub to Jermaine Durandamy, who isn't known for grappling at all or submissions. If Pena could get on top, she could possibly win the fight, but I'm personally not going to bet this fight, and I just have a slight lean to Sarah McCann.
Yeah, this one about minus 200 to go the distance, so not typically something you really want to target too much in DFS. I think this one will go the distance. I don't mind that line. It's a little bit much to lay, but I do expect this one to go all 3 rounds. Title from a DFS perspective, typically we're not targeting women's fights as much. They just go to the judges way more often and aren't in the optimal lineups as often as you see the men's fighters, especially the bigger men's guys. You see anything here from McCann and Pena that you want to target from a DFS perspective?
Yeah, the problem is we now have an 11 fight card. We have 3 women's fights. So that definitely lowers stuff. And the odds in this fight, because they're priced so close, the 8,200 for McMahon on DraftKings, 8,000 for Pena. And their only other mid-tier fight in that 7.8 to 8.4K range is the Zumagulov Albazi fight. So you might land in this range and need one of the girls. I lean with I'm with Joey. I think McMahon, I mean, it's a close fight. It's a woman's fight between two close people, so anything can happen. I definitely wouldn't bet it, but I do lean McMahon because the one thing that stuck out to me is she definitely has the better wrestling, like Joey said. And that's the only thing that really stood out to me for the differences between these girls. So if it gets there, I feel comfortable with McMahon on the mat. But I will say on FanDuel, like she's $16 on FanDuel. Pena's $13. That $3 can go a long way. And it's it's a wider margin than DraftKings, even though it looks like just 200. So you might need Pena. I'm fine with it. Like you said, I think it's going to go to decision. Sometimes on FanDuel with the scoring and the pricing and all that, it's okay to full punt. Like last week, Mason Wells, he had, am I blanking on his Mason Jones? Yeah, not Wells. Mason Jones scored 98. He outscored like 7 of the fighters that won last card, maybe even more. So you can have a loss. Obviously, I don't think this loss is going to score very well, but for the price, it might score enough to be enough to help you cash and get over the line. So more of a cash play, I think, but you might land on them as the last piece in tourneys because their price is affordable. I will say, because like I said, there's 3 women's fights, 11 fights total, not a lot that I think are going to go to decision more than finish. So I think the scores will be lower than we see or are used to seeing, just because we have 2 wars up top, McGregor and Chandler fight. And then after that, it does fall off pretty good with an exception of a couple here and there. So that's what I think. Woman's fight, close fight, slight lean McMahon. Pena's price is fine on FanDuel, but it's not the best fight.
I'm with you guys. I think if I was going to bet this one, it would just be, McMahon at -125. We all think she, maybe should be up near 150 or 160 or something. Not a huge edge, but overall, not the most exciting fight in the world, to be frank. We'll still be watching. And from a DFS perspective, again, like Title said, last person into your lineup, if you need the savings, fine. McMahon is okay. But other than that, certainly not a fight that you're going to want to target heavily in your lineups. Let's go to what should be a much better fight, I think, or more interesting fight, a little clash of styles here, I think, between Antonio Carlos Jr. and Brad Tavares. I think Carlos Jr. is going to want to get this one to the mat, use his jiu-jitsu to try to finish it, and Tavares going to want to strike. Tavares went the distance with Israel Adesanya just a couple of fights ago, so we know he can strike. And this one, I was kind of surprised to see it dead even in terms of the odds. Joey, what are you expecting between Tavares and Carlos Jr. here?
Yeah, so I did watch a interview from Brad Tavares yesterday, and he's just saying like, "Oh, my takedown defense is really good," but is it? I don't think it is. The guys he fought mainly aren't really good in wrestling. They've really fought him stylistically versus mainly strikers. So he hasn't had really a guy that's based BJJ black belt. Very aggressive in the grappling. So I'm personally going to take Antonio Carlos Jr. at the money line, shoe face plus 110. These guys are both off 2 losses in a row, both of them. Tavares, he doesn't attempt any takedowns. He says he's a good wrestler. His takedown defense is good, quote unquote, but, we'll see that if that's really good today, So out of his 2 losses, obviously you said was to Adesanya. I mean, he did go 5 rounds with Izzy. Not many people could go 5 rounds with Izzy. But again, they stand and bang the whole time mainly. Carlos Jr., known as Shoeface back in the day, he's been fighting for a while. He won the Ultimate Fighter at heavyweight, but he weighed in at, I think, 205. He has some solid wins over his career. He beat Marvin Vettori, Jack Marshman, Tim Bosch. Mm-hmm. He did get beat up last time versus Uriah Hall. So that was kind of scary to me. I mean, Uriah Hall is not somebody I'm really backing in his career as he is right now. And Ian Heinisch the time before that. I think Tavares, the only path to victory is if Tavares keeps it standing the whole fight. I don't really see him knocking out Carlos Jr. because mainly he's going to decisions almost all his fights as well. I anticipate eventually Antonio being successful on a couple takedowns, possibly getting a sub on the ground there. He has finished 80% of his wins. So I'm going to give me Shoeface plus 110 at PointsBet.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This one, I think it's kind of clear what's going to happen to me. If Carlos Jr. can score his takedowns, that's my question mark. We haven't seen Tavares really have to defend takedowns. When he has had to, he has been successful. Like you mentioned, the level of competition that those takedown attempts were coming against, not very high. But I don't see Carlos Jr. as a great takedown artist, frankly. I see him more as my worry for Tavares is if Carlos Jr. does get him down, I don't know if Tavares is going to be able to really get back up, right? He might either get subbed or the round's going to finish with Carlos Jr. in top control. He's going to win those rounds, obviously, most likely. But if Tavares can stop Carlos Jr., his takedown attempts, I think he's going to light him up on the feet pretty good. I could see him landing a lot of strikes. I haven't been impressed with Carlos Jr.'s striking. So really kind of a clash of styles here. It's one, if you bet Tavares and Carlos Jr. gets him down and gets him on the mat in the first 1 or 2 minutes, you're kind of going to be like, well, that's probably going to lose this one, right? And then if Carlos Jr. is getting stuffed on the takedown attempts, you're going to feel pretty good. So it's hard to say exactly which two of those sides is going to win. And I think that's kind of why you see it as a flip, right? It just all comes down to can Carlos Jr. get this to the mat? Sounds like you kind of think he can. I kind of lean that he'll have more trouble. So we'll see. Title, break the tie here. Carlos Jr., Brad Tavares.
Yeah, so a stylistic matchup, like you said. I don't think either of these guys are great or very good, to be honest. So I think it's going to be more of a greasy, weird fight, like who's going to gas first and then who can take over that way. Obviously, if it hits the ground, like you said, Junior's just he's gonna crush. I think he's the way better grappler, as we all know.
I could see a lot of these two pressed up against the cage. Carlos Jr.'s trying to finish takedowns. Not a lot going on, right? The ref's telling him to work. Just kind of could turn into one of those kind of crusty fights.
Yeah, this could play out in so many ways. I'm very interested in this fight because, like you said, like Tavares I think he could piece him up on the feet. I mean, Junior has a 5-inch reach advantage, but I've never seen someone use their reach advantage. He has one every fight, and he just never uses it. It's so frustrating. Like the guy, he's just a wonky, weird fighter. Like his movements are just weird, and it annoys me. But once it gets on the ground, then the guy goes to work and he does this thing. But he's got to get it there. The thing for DraftKings and FanDuel is this. I mean, because pricing came out early in the week, and Junior got good line movement, so he's way cheaper on both sites, like way cheaper. So it makes it, you don't really have a decision unless you really do think Tavares is going to win. You'll get him a lot lower owned than you will Junior. Junior's definitely going to be more popular, and he has good leverage. So if you think he can keep it on the feet, stuff the takedowns, he's a better play on FanDuel because you get takedown defenses on FanDuel, which is a big thing. And then if you think he can get him on the feet, and I think he can too, maybe he puts him away eventually. And then at 8,700 at 15% owned or whatever it is, like then you got big leverage on the field. But Junior's definitely the easier play because of the price, way better on the ground. I think he can get the takedowns. I'm with Joey. I don't think Tavares's takedown defense was really that great, but I don't think Junior's takedowns are really that great either. So it's going to be very interesting. I personally think that whoever's in the better shape is actually going to get it done and win the later rounds, because I don't think either puts him out in the beginning. Unless Junior just gets him taken down right away, has 4 minutes to work on the ground, then he might fish and get the submission.
Yeah, sounds like we're mostly on the same page. I do lean Tavares slightly, but not a big play for me. Some props that you could look at here. I feel relatively confident that kind of our take on this fight being one that has a great advantage on the ground, the other a pretty big advantage on the feet. I feel pretty confident that is actually true. So, Tavares by KO, TKO at Tavares plus 500-ish for KO, TKO, I think is fine. And then Carlos Jr. by submission at plus 350, a little bit of interest there. It is expected to go to the decision. You're seeing fight goes to decision at minus 160. So again, perhaps I could see, both of these fighters falling short of being in the optimal for DFS purposes. So I'm kind of with you, Title. Not the most exciting, but I think you'll see low ownership, specifically on Tavares on DraftKings, 8,700. People are not going to want to pay that price. Quickly reminder, guys, we do have a sponsorship with Monkey Knife Fights. You can use promo code RUNPEER. You'll get a $50 match if it's your first deposit, and tweet us a screenshot with winners, hashtag RPSMKF, for a chance to win a t-shirt. And then, of course, sign up over at runpeersports.com, workbench 21, 25% off your first payment. We've got the conference champion Wood Show coming up tomorrow morning. All the content on the site, bets, everything you can need. Joey, any final thoughts on this one before we move on?
Not really. I see where you're both coming from. It's obviously a stylistic fight, and I think we will, we'll at least a 1 round, maybe a round and a half into the fight, we'll realize who's going to win. So it might be a good live betting opportunity in this fight.
Yeah, I like that. After round 1, you can kind of see can Carlos Jr. get this one to the ground. If he can, it seems like he's pretty likely to either finish or get that decision. So I like that call, Joey. Let's move on to the most lopsided fight in terms of odds on the card. Arman Tsarukyan against Matt Frevola. Tsarukyan here, a late replacement, right? So he's both minus 700, around there, depending on where you look. So expected to finish this one relatively easily. Joey, do you think he's justified being that big of a favorite?
So this fight came about yesterday. Basically, Arman's opponent missed weight. Yep. And I'm pretty sure I was reading that Frevola's opponent never even got on the scales, and the fight got canned because he brought an outside visitor to the hotel.
Yeah, he got cut from the UFC then, I think.
He got cut from the UFC too?
So the story I listened to it, Dana, he gave his wristbands to get into Fight Island to it sounded like random people or something outside the bubble, and the people came in with the backpack. I still don't know what's in the backpack, but they came in, they somehow walked past security and all that because they had wristbands and all that, went into the room, his room, got changed or something, walked past multiple other security people, and they have it all on film and everything. And Dana, obviously you can't do that. So he cut him right away. And so they get matched up, but the story was insane. Imagine giving someone wristbands on the outside. And I really want to know what's in the backpack because Dana mentioned it multiple times. And did you hear what's in the backpack, DC?
No, I didn't hear, but yeah, I don't imagine doing all that work and quarantining for 2 weeks on Fight Island to get fight. And then it's just a bizarre story, frankly, but I guess it is what it is at this point. And now we have kind of this lopsided fight that obviously the UFC wasn't, they do a kind of a careful job in general, matchmaking fighters for specific reasons. And then sometimes you get fights like this that come up that just, it's a fight that can happen, right? They just wanted to keep a fight on the card. So, yeah, Joey, what are you seeing between these two?
Yeah, so I know Frevola was offered his win and show money, and he still took the fight, this fight, and power to him because Arman is a top prospect, in this weight class. His only loss was to Islam Makhachev, who obviously is a beast. I think Frevola, basically stylistically, he normally gets into roped into he has a game plan. It goes into the cage and then it just gets thrown out in the middle of the fight, and he gets roped into these wars. Which I don't think this is a good spot to do a war here. I know Ottman hasn't got a finish in the UFC, but out of his 15 fights, he has 5 by KO, 5 by sub, and 5 by decision. Personally, I think he could get a finish here because Frevola probably will get roped into this war on the feet. Ottman can hit him 1 time, 2 times, boom, knocked out. Frevola got knocked out by Polo Reyes in his UFC career. His others 2 went to decision. Personally, at the line, the odds, I'm not getting invested. But what is the line for Ottman inside distance? It's probably still crazy.
Yeah, I'll pull it up for you here. Arman inside the distance.
165, I see.
That's not terrible.
Plus 165, yeah.
Plus 165. That's definitely. When you're looking at it, and there's a guy minus almost 700 favorite, and then he's plus 165 inside the distance. You can't lay the minus 700. You got to go that path, in my opinion. Yeah,
the minus 700, 600, 700, whatever it is, seems a little steep to me. I know. For one, neither of these fighters prepared for the other one, right? So I think that kind of could potentially neutralize an edge over where, sure, Tsarukyan's a better fighter, but he didn't get to prepare for this fight. So I think that could neutralize his edge just a little bit. Frevola, pretty good wrestler, I think. Yep. Could maybe control. Arman's no slouch on the ground either, but I wouldn't be shocked if Frevola was able to score takedowns here. And kind of grind out a close decision. It seems at least possible to me. So I don't mind a little sprinkle. If you can get Frevola up near plus 500, plus 550, something like that, I think he wins this fight. 1 out of 5 chances. I don't mind it. So I'm certainly not laying that giant price on Arman. I don't even mind Frivola a little sprinkle in DFS as a super low on play if he is able to control this fight and take out who might be one of the more popular fighters for DFS, because he's only 8,900 as minus 6,700 favorite. I don't mind it. Title, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so with the cancellation and the new fights and all that, Sarukian becomes one of the chalkier options on the card at 8,900. He's the biggest favorite. You get a 500 price decrease from Evlov, so it makes total sense. Tournaments is where, it's harder, because if it goes to decision, there's definitely routes to him not getting there at 8,900. Yep. He's going to be massively owned. But Joey, because I this was something I really wanted to hear from Joey, and he said that he thinks 165 inside the distance is pretty good value. Obviously, you can't pay 705. I think Arman's definitely the better fighter all around, so I think he wins this fight. I know what you are saying, DC. The lines probably is too wide. My guess is Vegas doesn't really want to take action on Frivola. So many unknowns, make it a line that people just aren't going to hit. And if they do, maybe they get lucky and win. But so obviously Arman's going to be popular both sites, as he should be. I don't have too much interest in Frivola. His price is higher than it otherwise would be, because the prices don't change after fights get canceled. But he would be like a 6,800 fighter, but he's going to be the lowest owned on the card now, probably. So obviously always leverage. If any win for any dog today, I think could be enough to get on the optimal. So it's a way to get unique. I like it. I just think Arman's better all around, and good cash play, obviously biggest favorite on the slate. Tourneys is going to have high ownership, so got to make a stance one way or another.
I hear you. Yeah. Joey, do you think I'm overrating Frivola a little bit? Because I don't see him as some bum of a fighter like this line would kind of suggest.
No, absolutely not. I've seen him. So he was on the regional scene near me. So I've seen him fight a couple of regional fights, and he's been very impressive. He's been training with Billy Quarantillo. He's been training with a lot of badass fighters from Long Island, the Funk Master. So he trains with a lot of good fighters in his training camp. So I like the look by you.
Yeah, and the fact that he kind of accepted this fight despite being, he could have turned it down going in as a big underdog against an up-and-coming killer, and got paid and took the fight anyway. That, at least that he's ready to go, right? Like if he was dinged up a little bit, just a little bit of confidence there that he was willing to take the fight, I think, especially as a big underdog. All right, we'll keep it moving. We've got, I believe, 5 fights left to go. So moving up toward the main card here. Next fight on the card, Andrew Sanchez against Mahmoud Muradov. I probably butchered that one. This one, again, expected to be relatively close. Mahmoud is a minus 160 to minus 170 favorite. Joey, talk about this one here.
Yeah, so Sanchez, he's not really known as a finisher, but he's off his first KO since 2015, last time out versus Wellington Turner. I was on him inside the distance. It was probably about plus 200 almost, and he looked really good on his feet last time out. He said he's been working on his striking, and it translated. But past that, his striking has been weak. He's very hittable on the feet. He absorbs a lot of damage. He's basically a primary wrestler who has questionable cardio. He has wrestled himself into exhaustion multiple times. So Muradov, he's a beast. This is his, he's the first UFC fighter. Funny fact here, he's the first UFC fighter to be signed to Floyd Mayweather's money team.
All right.
This will be his third UFC fight. 24 wins, 19 by finish, 16 by KO. He has great footwork. He's light on the feet. I think he's personally far superior on the feet. Mm-hmm. He has good enough takedown defense to make Sanchez work for it. And this is where I'm curious to see the game plan for Sanchez, if he's going to go wrestle heavy. If he goes wrestle heavy by like round 3, he's going to be gassed. And that's where I look for Muradov to even win via finish by, him being gassed, maybe some ground and pound, getting him down. If they stand and bang, I think this is Muradov's fight to lose.
Yeah, Muradov, 24-6 in his career. And I think he's won his last 12 straight fights, including 2 in the UFC, the last one by finish. He's been impressive to me. I think he can dominate this fight. I kind of like him inside the distance, like you mentioned. And minus 165, I don't mind that either. I don't mind a little sprinkle on Muradov at that number. Yeah, it just seems like the better all around dude and a decent chance to finish this one. Yeah, this one is basically a flip to go to the judges, so that's a decent chance. This one does finish inside the distance. Muradov around plus 200 to finish by KO TKO. That's typically a fight that you might want to target for DFS purposes. Title, do you have a different read on Muradov and Sanchez here?
Yeah, so I like Muradov in this fight, but I'm a little worried about Sanchez just trying to stay on the outside, keep distance, pick them apart, and make it more of a slower, boring fight. So are you worried about that at all, Joey? Or do you think it's going to be more of like Sanchez is going to bang with him, he's going to get in his face, and it's going to be fun?
I probably think that Sanchez gets roped into this war, if anything, and then he'll probably try to attempt some takedowns.
I already liked Muradov because he's 8,600 on DraftKings. He's $17 on FanDuel. So I already had him as a good tag over on my playbook. Can't give all the winners away, all the stuff away. So head over and check out the playbook and stuff if you want to see my in-depth breakdown, all the fights, how I'm handling it. But yeah, I like Muradov in this fight. I'm not too big on Sanchez. I think Muradov's better in most areas. I think he's going to overwhelm him. I just hope that Sanchez does make it a war. He does get roped in and stuff, because if he stays on the outside and they both just try and pick each other apart and stuff, it could be a lower scoring fight, because it's supposed to, like you said, it's a coin flip to go to decision or not to. If it's a decision that's just 3 rounds of boring fights, neither of these guys are getting there. They're going to have ownership because they're in a pretty good price range, and it'd be good to get a underweight approach. But I like Muradov in this fight. I'm leading with him, and I'm definitely going to have more exposure. I think he gets this win. I'm not too confident on whether it's going to be decision or inside the distance. So, I'm definitely going to have some ownership though. And I get some Sanchez, because if it is a war, like Joey's saying, he has the power. He has the capability of putting it away too. So it's not like Muradov's just going to murder like we think Roundtree is. No, I mean, Sanchez is definitely live in this fight.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I do like Muradov at minus 160 to win the fight. That's kind of my official bet on that one. I did go out of order. That's not actually the first fight of the.
They moved it. They changed it around a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So
with the new fight,
kind of have it on. But we should see the first fight of the main card be Amanda Ribas and Marina Rodriguez. Ribas, I'm a fan of hers. She's come in here as a pretty steep favorite though, sitting around minus 300. Haven't really been impressed with her opponent, Marina Rodriguez, who kind of has some sloppy striking to me, just hasn't looked that great. But yeah, this one, I think this one has a pretty good chance to go the distance. I think it'll be mostly on the feet. I do favor Ribas there and in frankly other aspects of the game too. So I do like Ribas to win this one, but laying minus 300 feels a little bit steep. Joey, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm definitely not laying it. I think there's probably a bias recency for Amanda Ribas. She beat Mackenzie Dern, who everyone's, was really high on.
Was that Dern coming off, I think, her pregnancy maybe?
Yes.
And
Yeah. So you got to
Dern would beat her now, I think.
Oh, yeah, I agree. That's got to be turned down a little bit. Then past that, she beat Paige Van Zandt, who got cut. Who's, it's nothing special. She's good to look at. That's about it. Yeah. Randy Marcos, who sucks by decision. So I think this line is not correct at all. I don't think it's justified at all. Marina Rodriguez. You're
going to take a shot on Marina here?
As you said, if you think it's going to be standing the whole time, I think Marina has, they're at equal, maybe the slight advantage on the feet. So definitely, I think, if that's the case, give me Marina. She's fought the better fighters for sure. She just lost a split decision to Carla Esparza. She's very good in the clinch. She likes to mix it up, throw knees and elbows. Ribas obviously is a jiu-jitsu artist, black belt, and judo. She averages 2.5 takedowns for 15 minutes, and she always looking for a sub. So I think that she will try to get it to the ground because that's where her main advantage is here. But at this price, it's got to be dog or pass. Marina's fought the much better competition. Her wrestling defense is questionable, but if you go and watch all these events in Fight Island, the judges haven't been very fairly, towards wrestlers. They haven't been favorable towards wrestlers. If they rather stand and bang, and they're judging towards more output, more damage, more than the wrestling side of things. So personally, if anything, it's dog or pass here for me. You could get Rodriguez plus 260 in places, so I am going to be on that probably about for a half unit, but I'll take my chances there.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can get Marina Rodriguez to win via TKO KO at plus 1,200, which, yeah, wouldn't mind a stab there. You're obviously not going to go crazy with that one. It's unlikely, but I think, they fight it off times. Rodriguez does finish inside the distance via KO, TKO, once in a while. I'll throw it over to you, Title. Before I do, guys, we're at, I believe, around 70 likes. Let's get up to 100. We'll give away a free piece of Run Pure Sports gear. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We'll send Big T over to the FedEx office before the football games tomorrow. Get you guys swagged out. Title. I think this is another fight that probably will go overlooked on most people's DFS lineups. I think you'll see some people on Ribas just because she is that minus 300 favorite. What are you seeing between these two fighters?
Yeah, so I agree with Joey Werk on if it stays on the feet. I think Rodriguez has more power than Ribas in this fight, actually. And I think there is a lot of recency by the line's definitely too wide, no doubt about that. But I do have a little interest in DFS on the Ribas side because I do think she gets overlooked in that upper tier price range. She's a plus 190 to get the finish. I think there's paths for her to get the finish. She can get it on the ground, work it around. I don't know. It's a woman's fight. Anything can happen in women's fights. So if you're going to give me lower ownership in tournaments on Ribas, I'm fine with it. But I'm also fine with Rodriguez too, because she's very cheap. She's definitely way more live than people think in this fight. It's supposed to go to decision. So I can see this fight. I think this fight comes in under-owned.
Yep.
Even on an 11-fight card too, like in the prices. So I think it's very under-owned. I think Rodriguez has the better stand-up, carries more power in their hands. So it's a fight I'm actually pretty interested in. I still do think Ribas is going to get the win. I'm a little more high on her than you guys are, but I think probably next fight, if she wins this, she's going to get a tougher opponent that's definitely better than her, because I agree. I think Dern's better than Ribas. We haven't really seen much from Ribas, but maybe she comes out and proves us wrong, because she has talent for sure, but we need to see it against higher level competition. This fight definitely is not priced appropriately. I think Rodriguez is a lot closer than what people are giving credit for, but ownership's going to result in that. And I think I like both girls.
Yeah, if I'm betting either side here, I'm taking Rodriguez at the plus 250 or so, just as a big underdog, and probably the same thing for DFS. If you need, a salary filler, which you might, right? I think there are some good expensive fighters. I'm not paying the 9,200 for Ribas on any or most, if any, lineups. Rodriguez, though, at 7K, again, there's a chance she could land 100 plus significant strikes here, which, if she does pull off the win, would perhaps get her close to the optimal lineup. So I don't mind.
I will say it's interesting. Ribas opened at like plus 240. I'm seeing on 5 dimes and inside the distance, all the way up to plus 185 right now. So she's getting a little steam in that aspect, and it's a plus 155 now. It was plus 165 though. To fight doesn't go the distance, so it's supposed to go the distance, but it's not in the 200s like most women's fights we see. So Vegas sees something that it could be a little finish too. So it's something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
Sorry to cut you off.
So that takes care of the first 2 fights on the main card. We do have one more women's fight before we get to the main event and the co-main event, and that is Joanne Calderwood versus Jessica Ai. This one expected to be close as well. More or less a toss-up between these two. Calderwood sitting at a very slight favorite right now. Joey, do you have a strong take between Ai and Calderwood here as we work our way up the main card?
This is an interesting matchup. These two both have the same height, same reach. They're both vets in the UFC. They fought some of the best women's fighters in the UFC. Late money has come in on Jessica here, but we've seen that a lot recently on Fight Island, and it hasn't really panned out, at least in 2021. I think she'll look to probably keep this fight standing. She's very boxing heavy, leans into her punches, has solid movement. As for JoJo, she throws a ton of output, and in women's MMA, that could win you the fight alone. She's really good at cutting off the cage, forcing her opponents back to the cage. She lands about 6 significant strikes per minute. She's not afraid. She won't be afraid to take the fight to the match. Do I see that happening? I'm not sure. But she's successful on more than half of her takedowns. This is probably a just stay away from me. I do, if you have a parlay piece, probably, obviously, most of these female fights go to the judges, but I think this one is almost a lock to go the distance. So you could use that as a possible parlay piece. So that would be my only look on this fight.
Yeah, certainly the judges do expect this one to go to decision, sitting around minus 320 to go to decision. I think that's probably maybe the biggest number on the whole card, which typically means, you might stay away from this one from DFS title. But like Joey mentioned, Calderwood does throw a lot of volume. Like you mentioned, 6 significant strikes per minute, which you don't see many numbers higher than that. So it would seem like Joey said, I think a good call there is, when neither of the fighters have knockout power, which I kind of see here, just the volume alone can win you the fight, because there's not really much else to score it on other than, just the strikes landed. If neither fighters are landing those power punches. So Title, what do you see between Jessica and Joanne here?
Yeah, I see it the same way you guys. Anytime I see like 320 supposed to go to decision, it's like, all right, well, don't have too much interest, but I lean Calderwood to win this fight as well, just off of sheer volume alone. But it's a woman's fight. Like, I'm definitely not betting this fight. Way too close. And DFS, like, if you're playing someone, it's Calderwood, especially on FanDuel because they're the same price. DraftKings, it's a 600 price difference though. So if you think I is going to win the fight, you definitely can make a case for it. She's 7,800. She's listed as an underdog and she's only a very slight underdog. So 7,800 feels too cheap if you think she can get the win, but I lean Calderwood in this fight. So I'm not going to have as much exposure there. As far as the significant strikes and how much volume she does throw. Yeah, she's in play for that for sure. But it depends what else you think the other fights do. Do you think most fights go to decision? Then maybe 8,400 with 125 significant strikes is enough. If you think 5 or 6 fights finish and an underdog gets there and all that, probably not going to get there. So depends what you think on the other cards. I expect a decision, but my lean is Calderwood as well.
Yeah, seems like we're mostly on the same page on that one. 2 fights to get to, 2 fantastic fights, frankly, the main event and the co-main event. We'll talk about those in just a moment. Before we do, hit that like, hit that subscribe, guys. Let's get up to 100 likes and we'll get some gear out. And of course, all the content up on runpuresports.com, not only of course from MMA, but football, basketball, PGA, whatever you need, bets, DFS, we've got it all. The Discord is always popping, as I mentioned. So Workbench 21 will get you 25% off your first payment. With that, let's get to the 2 big fights on the card. By far the 2 best fights overall. The first one, Dan Hooker and Michael Chandler. Most of you probably are pretty familiar with Dan Hooker, who's obviously been in some wars, a really fun fighter to watch. Just goes balls out every time he's in the cage. Michael Chandler will be coming over from Bellator, where he was a multiple-time champion, has beaten some guys, knocked out Benson Henderson, who you might be familiar with from the UFC. He's a little bit of an older fighter, right? Like the UFC has been hyping him up, but he's not exactly a prospect. I think he's in his mid-30s. It's always interesting when we get, most of the fighters that come over from the UFC are kind of on the lower level, right? UFC snags them when they're coming up. Chandler coming over as a multiple-time champion gets thrown right to the wolves here with Dan Hooker, who's obviously near the top of the division at 155. This one should be interesting. Joey, I'm interested to hear your take. Hooker right now sitting around minus 140 to minus 150 against Chandler.
Yeah, so some steam came in yesterday on Hooker, and I'm kind of with it. Both these guys have a lot of miles on their body. They over 25 fights each. So let's start with Hooker. He has a 2-inch height advantage, 6-inch reach advantage. His best path to victory, in my opinion, will be keep the fight at distance and pick him apart. He does throw a lot of legs. Most are successful, but he never checks legs on the defensive end. He never checks any legs. Hooker has fought obviously some of the baddest fighters in the UFC: Gilbert Burns, Poirier, multiple fighters. And I think personally, if you go back and look at Chandler's fights in Bellator, he beat Benson Henderson last time out. Benson Henderson just lost to Jason Jackson in Bellator. Like I'm really not sold on this whole coming over from Bellator. Be it Sidney Outlaw. Do you know what Sidney Outlaw is?
No.
Yeah, no comment. I didn't think so. Okay, so he has got knocked out when he gets roped into these wars. He has got knocked out by Pitbull. He got knocked out by Brett Primus. I mean, it was his doctor stoppage, but it is what it is. So coming over here, I think this is. I really like Hooker in this fight.
Yeah.
He is very durable. Hooker. He has great fight IQ. Chandler, he said in multiple interviews, he heard Khabib say about making a statement he could get his fight. What does that mean? That means he's going to get roped into this fight on the feet, and it's going to be a boxing striking war. That he has no advantage there. So, I think, he also Chandler got clipped by Eddie Alvarez back in the day. I think Chandler should try to take this to the ground, where I think he has clearly the advantage, but Hooker hasn't really fought a guy that has good grappling as Chandler. But with all the statements and whatnot, I'm really leaning Hooker in this fight. You could get probably about minus 125-ish around now. And I also do like fight to not go distance. You could get that at minus 120 in some places. So those would be my two plays on this fight.
Yeah, this one, probably my favorite bet on the card here, frankly, is Hooker to win this fight. I just think the level of competition that he's fought is just so superior to Chandler. He's a younger fighter. He's got longer reach. He's taller. He's a fantastic fighter, and I think the betting, the betting lines, people like the shiny new toy, right? We haven't seen Chandler in the UFC in so long. You kind of think, oh, how great could this guy be? You go watch his tape. His striking doesn't look that clean to me. I think Hooker is easily going to win most of these exchanges. We've seen the chin that Hooker has, the wars that he can go through. Obviously, just fought Dustin Poirier in his last fight. Looked fantastic. Lost the fight in a close decision, but an absolute war. Hooker, he's game. He's going to be out there. I think Chandler's best path to victory is those takedowns, but I don't know if he's going to really even be trying that much, and if he'll be successful if he does. So, yeah, I'm in on Hooker here. I think he can beat Chandler on the feet in a lot of different aspects, and I think people, it's just easy to write off Hooker. You see, he lost his last fight. Like, he's not, Hooker's not like next level. And people may be thinking, well, maybe Chandler is. I personally don't think so. So I'm with you, Joey. This seems like a pretty damn good spot for Hooker to me. I like him. Obviously, that line at minus 120 to minus 140, wherever you can get it. And then maybe to win via KO. Wouldn't shock me at all in this one. And I do like him from a DFS perspective as well. Title, what are you seeing between Chandler and Hooker?
Yeah, Hooker's not next level, but there's definitely levels to the game, and I think he is a level above Chandler. Hooker, I mean, he's game. Any fight, he's a fighter. He loves to fight. I had Hooker against Poirier, actually, last fight. I thought Hooker's leg kicks, and he would get in a war, and it would be good. And, I mean, it was a great fight. You can't complain with any of that. I think this is going to be a war too, though. I think Chandler's as tough as they come. I think this fight actually does go to decision, and you get plus money for it, because I think Chandler, Chandler's making his UFC debut, all the lights, all the eyes on him. I think both these guys are going to take all the damage in the world and just give the fans a show. So I'm very excited. Chandler definitely needs to get it on the ground, use his wrestling, keep Hooker down. And he is live for that, though. I don't think Hooker, I'm not as strong, I guess, as Hooker is going to dominate this fight, I think, as much as you guys are. So I think I think Chandler is in play for DFS. You get a big discount on DraftKings too. He's only 7,700 compared to 8,500 for Hooker. It's only 19 to 18 on FanDuel, but Michael Chandler might come in more popular than Hooker today on DraftKings. I think so. With that 800 price decrease. So yeah, I think so too, which makes me like Hooker even more, because I do think he wins the fight. At the end of the day, it really only matters on DraftKings if they win the fight when it's something like this, because you need that 30 points or whatever it is. Yes. So I lean Hooker. I think he is levels above Chandler. I think this line is just because, Chandler, everyone's heard about Chandler eventually coming into the UFC, all this guy from Bellator, all this stuff. Yeah, he's good for sure. But I think Dan Hooker's getting disrespected a little bit on this betting line, and I like Hooker too.
Yeah, so that's 3 for 3 on Hooker. Hopefully he'll pull out the victory for you guys. Sounds like we'll all be in on him in some fashion, DFS betting, all that good stuff. All right, let's get to the main event, the return of Conor McGregor, who will fight Dustin Poirier for the second time. They fought back when Conor was kind of still up and coming to some extent in the UFC. Dustin Poirier as well. Conor looked great in that fight, controlled it, and finished Poirier just in a couple minutes time. Obviously, both fighters have kind of gone through a lot, evolved a ton since then. Poirier, his his schedule of fighters that he's fought is just ridiculous. He's fought the who's who in 145 and then 155 as well. This one obviously taking place at 155. Their first fight, interestingly, was at 145. Conor sitting here as a big favorite, sitting around -300. It's been right around there for the last couple of weeks. Everything I'm reading and hearing and listening to on podcasts, it does sound like Conor, this should be a focused Conor McGregor. I expect him to look really good, but hey, Dustin Poirier, one of the best fighters in the world, no question about it. So, kind of curious to see Conor all the way up at -300. Obviously, he's got a ton of hype behind him, just given how famous he is and all that. But yeah, Joey, what do you think? Do you think -300, or I guess maybe -280, kind of as the big free line? Does that seem accurate to you?
Probably not. He should probably be -200, I would say.
Yeah.
But I can't back McGregor here. I know these guys have a lot of mutual respect coming into this fight, which I love. Poirier finally gets a shot for a money fight. This fight is up a weight class from the first time they fought, as you mentioned, which I think only helps Dustin. He has shown at 155 is much more durable. He's able to take much more damage here. They're both southpaws basically, but Poirier likes to mix it up a little more. He'll throw a straight left into a right hand, overhand right. Do we see him take this to the ground? That's a question I'm really not sure of. I know Conor's not taking it to the ground. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
So Poirier has a very underrated ground game. If he does, in fact, attempt a takedown, that should open up the whole game plan and could be a really key to success in this fight. Conor, he's going to look to stand and bang, as we all know. But if we remember, Poirier got the win over Max Holloway back in that fight, but Max dropped him in round one. This is something that you cannot let Conor do to you. Conor has a 95% finish rate if he drops you. So one thing I'm kind of worried about if this goes later is Conor's cardio. So I think he will press the action early. As he stated, he's going to knock him out in the first round. But I think this is kind of a drawn-out fight, and this goes longer than a lot of people think. So I think that only favors Dustin, in my opinion. I know over 1.5, you could get -120 on DraftKings. That would be like my best play on this fight. You could even get fight to start round 2 is almost at plus money. Over 2.5 is at plus 150. So those are my looks here. I'm not really going to pick a side, but I lean the over.
Yeah, I think I'm buying the Conor hype a little bit, frankly. I love Dustin too. I've been certainly on him his last couple fights. But man, Conor, he's just so precise, so much power in that left hand. I do, again, maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but I do think he's extremely focused for this. Listened to a couple long interviews with his team. Basically, when he was coming up, like people kind of questioning his cardio. They didn't have any scientific stuff going on. He's got a full team of doctors and nutritionists and all that. And I really do think he's completely focused, in a good place for this one. We haven't always seen that from him, right? The Diaz fights where things went to his head a little bit. I do honestly believe we will see the best version of Conor McGregor. If we do, I think he's a class above Dustin Poirier. I think he'll land early with that power. And like you said, people don't get up when Conor lands a clean left. So that's my prediction. I think it's going to be early. You can get Conor McGregor to win this fight in round 1 at plus 175-ish. I already tweeted it out. That's what I'm on here. And yeah, I think, from a DFS perspective, I assume Conor will be the most popular fighter on the slate title. And for my money, that's justified. If he does finish this one in round 1, like I predict, pretty likely to be in that optimal lineup, right?
Yeah, so I think winner of this is going to be in the optimal for sure.
Yes.
This has fight of the night.
If Dustin wins, he's in the optimal, like he just is.
Yeah, I mean, either of these guys, you really think, because so how I see the fight, I think it's McGregor in the first 2 rounds, but I think he needs to put Poirier out in the first 2 rounds. Otherwise, I think Poirier is going to put the pace on.
Sure.
I think McGregor does wear and tire a little bit. 4 and 5 rounds for the weight. I mean, McGregor is big, massive for this division. Once he gets to the 4th and 5th, I think Poirier's fight to lose, actually, when it gets there. Anytime McGregor's on a card, the betting odds are always going to be skewed. McGregor's not a -300 favorite against Dustin Poirier. I don't think he wins. I don't think that's viable. Poirier is way too good for that. I do think McGregor's gonna be like the chalkiest fighter, as you said, on the slate. And I think there is leverage to go with Poirier in this fight, because if he wins, especially with no dogs on this card, it makes your lineup feel way more comfortable. Everybody and their mom is on McGregor. Like everyone loves McGregor. First round knockout, all this stuff. Yeah, it very well could happen. If McGregor wins, I think it is a first round knockout or a second round knockout, because he just carries so much power for this division. Poirier's been hurt, and you just don't survive Conor hitting you with the left hand. You got to survive it. Conor looks as good as ever, locked in, all of that. But Poirier's all locked in and looks very good too. I mean, this guy wants to win as bad as ever too. Him and McGregor, obviously it's been a better relationship this time around, but these guys don't like each other. I mean, they're fighting. They want to show Khabib that they're next. They're ready. I expect an absolute banger of a fight. Early rounds, I think, go to Conor. Later rounds go to Dustin. If it goes all 5 rounds, man, it's going to be tough. And I think Poirier wins a 5-round decision. It's just whether or not you think he can hold and withstand the first 2 rounds of McGregor, because he's going to put on the pressure. He's going to put on the heat. And I think it makes for a very good live betting opportunity as well. Because if he survives the first 2 rounds and all that, you'll get, I mean, the odds are probably, I don't see Poirier winning rounds 1 or 2. If he does, this fight's really weird. So he's going to have, the odds are going to be weird. They're not going to be right because the people making them don't understand the fight game as much. And Poirier comes on later. So I think it's the live betting opportunity. If you bet McGregor, you got to bet inside the distance or a certain round, because I wouldn't lay 3-1 against Poirier on this fight.
Yeah, I much prefer the plus 175 for Conor to win in round 1 than I do.
Yeah, that's way better.
Laying minus 300 for him to win the fight overall. I think your breakdown of it, Title, I have a little bit more confidence perhaps in McGregor's, conditioning and cardio than you do. I think he's probably fixed that issue for the most part, but nevertheless, it is somewhat of a question mark. You can get Poirier by decision around plus 600. I think that's interesting. He could lose the first couple of rounds and then come back and win a close fight in the end. The live betting, as you mentioned, I think is super interesting, right? If Conor kind of somewhat dominates him striking through round 1 or round 2, you're going to get Poirier at, I don't know, plus 800, something like that, plus 900 perhaps in the live betting. That seems like a decent opportunity. So a lot of different ways you can go here. Joey, further thoughts from you on McGregor and Poirier?
Yeah, I think I'm not really sold on it going to decision. I think the later it goes, more obviously, as Title said, more chance of Poirier getting possibly a knockout. I mean, I can't see this thing. These guys are going to stand and bang most of the fight if Poirier doesn't decide to take it down, and I think somebody's going to go to sleep.
I think that comes where, I think you and I, Joey, are we are doubting McGregor's gas tank more than DC is. I think that's why, if he has the gas tank in DC, if you think he has 5 rounds of a gas tank and he can do that, then I think decision makes more sense. I don't think McGregor in the later round, Poirier just puts such a massive output, always in your face. And if he smells, this is what I hate about some of these fighters, is they just don't have that killer instinct. They hurt the guy, they wobble him, they're blacked out, they don't know what's going on, and they just let him survive. They get in the clinch. I can't stand that. Dustin Poirier won't do that to McGregor. If he feels that he's on the ropes and getting him, I think he's putting all the pressure on. So I'm with you on that, I think. But maybe Conor's gas tank is a little better, his nutrition better and all that. Maybe he can survive till the end. I don't know. That's an interesting number for sure, but I'm expecting a 5-round war, or a war as long as it lasts. And these guys are going to it's minus 400 to end inside the distance or something crazy. So obviously Vegas thinks it's going that way.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. I'm definitely looking forward to this McGregor-Poirier battle. And of course, the co-main event looks good as well. And, I'm never going to complain about any fights. So 11 fights tonight should be awesome. Can't wait for it. Thanks for tuning in. As always, guys, please hit that like, hit that subscribe. We've got, I believe, a free show tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. Conference champion Wood show. Should be Big T, I think, and Hoop on that one. Awesome stuff, guys. Head on over to runpeersports.com if you want all of our bets on this card, as well as all the content that we have for all sports DFS and betting over at runpeersports.com. Promo code Workbench21 will get you 25% off. That will do it for us. For Joey, for Title, I'm DC. We'll check you next time.
Good luck, everybody.